Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday morning. Yep, because it's exactly midnight here in Uganda. So we are 1 hour late, as opposed to having been here at 11 p.m. due to matters beyond out of my control. We are an hour late. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad. It's very disappointing for my part and for your part as regular viewers of the channel who expect certain standards to be met on a routine basis. But I'll again ask for indulgence uh, with me on this one. Kindly bear with me on this one. It's not what I would have loved, but like I said, it's often because of matters beyond my own control, and sometimes you can't force life. You just have to deal the hand you've been dealt with. So, anyways, we are back and we'll get the conversation going. We are back and we'll get the conversation going. In as far as tonight's broadcast is concerned, we'll get to speak about the things that we ought to speak about. Manchester City overcoming Leeds to move within 2 points behind Arsenal. We'll talk about Liverpool sending their strong message in their pursuit for a top 4 finish. Send top 4. So we'll talk about Liverpool, we'll talk about Man City, we'll talk about the drama that was at Turf Moor, where Brentford managed to overcome Burnley by 4 goals to 3. As we speak, Inter Milan 1-0 ahead of Genoa. Then Bayern Munich just beat up against Borussia Dortmund in the Derby di Klassiker by 3 goals to 2. So it's been quite the goals galore this Saturday, and we can only hope that perhaps games continue in a similar manner or in a similar strength tomorrow. Everton overcoming Newcastle to beat them by 3 goals to 2 there at St. James's Park. For those of you that care to remember, my prediction was for Everton to win that game. I think just as much as I predicted for Brentford to win their game. Obviously, I got the Aston Villa game wrong. Bournemouth, I thought they could overcome Sunderland and beat them by 2 goals to 1, but that was it did not happen. It ended in a 1-1 draw. Liverpool, I thought, would be forced into a 1-1 draw against West Ham. Well, they ran riot with that West Ham side. 3 goals in the first half. Set pieces were very critical in that game. I think we had about 3 goals out of the 7 being results of set pieces. So very, very interesting action. And then Anton Semenyo scoring to sort of bail out Manchester City. And it turns out that the January transfer for Manchester City in Mark Gehi and Anton Semenyo are proving so far to be the difference for the remainder of the season. And that must be quite fulfilling if you're Pep Guardiola, knowing that you press the right buttons or pick the right pieces to complete your puzzle in as far as your squad is concerned, given the sort of shortfalls that they had, particularly in their backline, but also in their width, at least to the best of their strength. Nothing too fancy, but it was also a game of missed chances because Leeds missed a whole host of chances. There's a miss by, I think, Dominic Calvert-Lewin that reminded me of that infamous miss by what's his name? By Son Heung-min, when Tottenham Hotspur came up against Man City in the 2023-2024 campaign, when Man City and Arsenal were still having a go at it for the Brest to win the Premier League title. So we had some bad memories of that. And unfortunately, it is what it is. Heading into halftime, that game between Rio Oviedo and Atletico de Madrid is still goalless Yes, so there's plenty of action going on. I do understand that PSG are in action against Le Havre over there in France. PSG have had one of their games, I think, against FC Nantes, that was slated to be played prior to their fixture against Chelsea being moved or having to be rescheduled. Well, it only happens in other leagues. I've never. Now, they do reschedule games in the Premier League to try and give their teams an advantage, but oftentimes they will do it in a manner. For example, if a game was slated to be played on Sunday, for example, Arsenal had to play a game against Everton on a Sunday. That game has been shifted to a Saturday because Arsenal will have an engagement in the UEFA Champions League the subsequent week on a Tuesday. So that's the best the Premier League does for you. In other leagues, you'll find games being moved to earlier than Friday, or even being entirely postponed in terms of being moved to an entirely different date or period of time, where you to sort of try and give their teams a bit of enough room and resting time and preparation time to go for their exploits in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. Sebi, wow. Sebi de Dan, Mr. How are you doing? I'm all right. Thanks for asking. I hope you're doing all right as well. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on what the timeline is for you. I know for our friends in India, it's about 2 a.m. I know for our friends in the UK, it's about 9 p.m. Over in other parts of Europe, it's about 10 p.m. In Turkey, it's about midnight and things like that. So different time zones for different people. But I do send you my greetings wherever it is that you are. We spoke about this game, the game from yesterday, but match day 28 kicked off yesterday as Wolverhampton Wanderers. That was, I mean, Friday. When I say yesterday, I mean Friday, not Saturday. When Wolverhampton Wanderers literally stunned the footballing world as they beat up against Aston Villa by 2-0. And then subsequently today in the early kickoff, Evanilson coming off the bench to restore parity for FC Bournemouth in the 63rd minute before he got injured and was withdrawn to cancel out Mayenda's 18th minute goal that had given Sunderland the lead. It's a kind of game that Bournemouth could have won had they been clinical with their chances, but you also ought to give it to Robin Rofes, who was quite critical in putting in the shift in terms of saves. In as far as that game was concerned, which Bournemouth, the home side, dominated to the tune of 62% in terms of ball possession compared to Sunderland's 38%. That had an XG of 1.7 compared to Sunderland's 1.4. 21 shots on goal with only 5 on target for AFC Bournemouth compared to Sunderland's 8 with 4 on target. So you can see the level of efficiency fell more to the side of Sunderland, who only registered 3 corners compared to Bournemouth's 7. Hi, John Abiero. Good to have you back on the podcast. Always a pleasure to see you around. It's very encouraging when you see usual suspects or some of your new people become regulars on the forum, on the channel, to come and engage on these matters of football. So, anyways, Andon Iraola's side could not get it over the line, so they ended up sharing the spoils. I think Regis Riblis, that's the Sunderland manager, who was welcoming back by his captain in Granit Xhaka, who featured in that game, will be happy with the point, knowing that at least in their next game, with 37 points in 11th place, with 37 points. If they can win their next game, it will take them to 40 points, which ordinarily in the Premier League guarantees safety, or it means that you're safe. You cannot be chopped off. You cannot fall to the drop zone. It also goes to speak to how Sunderland got things right on their side quite early on in the season. Asher Speed says, hi Asher Speed, good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it's your first time here. Thank you so much. Robert Kesakos is my name, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 9 minutes past midnight. Yes, we are already into our Sunday, the 1st of March. So it's no longer the 29th of February for us here in the Pearl of Africa. It's already the 1st of March. So indulge me in case your time is different. Anyways, so that was that for that game. And then we went into, where do we start? Do we start at Anfield? Do we start at Turf Moor? Do we start at St. James's Park? I mean, it was all action packed. Like I said, a girls galore. I'll go to Burnley. Burnley were quite unfortunate because they had 2 goals ruled out by VAR, fighting their way from 3 goals nil down into a 3-all draw, into leading 4-3 and having 2 goals chopped at different intervals. I mean, it must have been heartbreaking being a Burnley fan today, because every time you thought you had nicked it, then a VAR had other ideas. If you thought you had rescued a point, VAR had a very unlikely or undesirable intervention on your part. So, but that's football. But Mikel Damsgaard there did open the scoring with a goal in the 9th minute, while Igor Thiago scored to make it 2-0. That was in the 25th minute. And then Kevin Shadder's rebound of, I think, a header by Burnley defender from Michael Coyote's long free kick. No, sorry, Michael Coyote had a long throw in, and then the ball is flicked onto the back. I think there was a Burnley player who deflects it back into play, right close off of the line, before Kevin Shadder parries it into the back of the net. Alituha says, "Hi man, I'm watching from Mbara, Uganda." Hi Alituha. I'm also streaming live from Kampala, Uganda. Thank you for joining us. How is Mbara? How is the land of milk and honey? Been a minute since I've been to Mbara. I think I was last in Mbara sometime during 2024. Yeah, sometime around mid-year 2024. But how is Mbara? I hope it's a rainy season and people are getting down to work over there. But thank you for joining us. What team do you support, Alituha? So it was the kind of game that, one, for starters, if you're Brentford, if you're Keith Andrews, you think you have the game within your grip, within your stride. But it's the Premier League. Anything can happen. You get punished on your mistakes, because while Brentford thought they were going to head into halftime with a 3-0 lead, Michael Coyote scored into the back of his own net in the 3rd minute of stoppage time of the opening half to make it 3-1. And Burnley went into halftime with that bit of encouragement that it was all but done for them. So then they returned in the second half, and then Antony scored in the 47th minute to make it 3-2, and then Fleming's 60th minute goal was the goal that restored parity to make it 3-3 at the time. Unfortunately, like I said, it was never meant to be Burnley's day. They would go on to score. You'll talk about Chelsea? Yes, most obviously. We'll talk about Chelsea. Very big game they have coming up tomorrow against Arsenal in that North London, in that London derby there. So you thought that it was always going to be interesting moving on forward from there when Burnley scored through Fleming to make it 3-3. And it was Fleming who scored in the 79th minute, who thought he had given Burnley the lead, but that goal was chopped off by VAR. And then in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, Mikel Damsgaard got his 2nd of the evening when he scored to make it 4-3. And then he had won it for Brentford. At least he had thought so. But then Anthony Barnes there came and scored. Sorry, not Anthony Barnes, Ashley Barnes. Yes, Ashley Barnes scored a brilliant goal to make it 4-4. But unfortunately, it appeared the ball had hit between his midriff and his arm before he fired it into the back of the net. So that goal was chopped off. And Muhammad, hi. Then John says, at what time will Arsenal play Chelsea tomorrow? At 7:30 p.m. East African time. That's the kickoff time for the game between Arsenal and Chelsea. So there, unfortunately, for Scott Parker's side, it finished 4-3 in favor of Brentford. Brentford, what a brilliant result there for Keith Andrews. I mean, they are in they are 7th on the Premier League log with 43 points, only 2 points behind Chelsea, who play tomorrow, and then about 5 points still behind Liverpool, who won their game earlier on, as we will see, and then Man United also at 48 points. We know that because Aston Villa lost their game yesterday, lost on Friday night by 2-0 against Wolverhampton Wanderers. They put themselves at risk because if Man United win their game tomorrow, as we do expect them to do so against Crystal Palace, then they will be third on the Premier League log. Yes, as odd as that may sound to some of your ears, if Man United win their game against Crystal Palace, which in my personal view, I expect them to go ahead and win, they will be moving to third place on the Premier League log. Who would have thought that at this stage of the season, with 10 games left to play, Man United will be third on the Premier League log? Trust me, I would not have seen that coming. I did not see that coming, nor did I anticipate the sacking of Ruben Amorim. So I did not anticipate Michael Carrick taking the Red Devils thus far. Anyways, we'll leave that at that and go to St. James's Park, where Newcastle, for the second time, were beaten by Everton by 3-2. Now, last season, this was the final game for Newcastle at St. James's Park on the final day of the Premier League last season. And Everton beat Newcastle by 0-0. Now, going into that fixture, Newcastle having beaten up against Everton in the first leg at the Hill Dixon Stadium, my prediction had been that they would lose by 2-1 against Everton. Well, it ended 3-2. But the key moment from that game, I did not get to watch the game, but I was able to have a glimpse on some of the highlights from there in. And oh my, Jordan Pickford, what a brilliant save of Sandro Tonali's attempt there with literally one of the key moments of the game. I mean, I must say it's often I've said this before. Football is increasingly become a game of small margins. It's become a game of small margins. And that is what tells you everything that you need to know. Because if that ball goes in, then we would be totally talking about a very, very different result there between the two sides in Everton and Newcastle. But it finished 3-2 in favor of Everton, who are returning to winning ways following their defeat against Manchester United on Monday Night Football when they lost by 0-0. That goal scored by Benjamin Sesko. So it was Gerard Braithwaite who scored to give the visitors the lead in the 19th minute, while in the 32nd minute, Jacob Ramsey scored, I think, his second Premier League goal of the season to make it 1-1, with Sandro Tonali providing the assist there for Jacob Ramsey, while James Garner had provided the assist for Gerard Braithwaite. Meanwhile, Inter Milan have gotten the second against Genoa. It was from the penalty spot for a handball in the area there. So Inter Milan against Genoa, that game is 2-0 as we speak. Then there's another game between Real Oviedo and Atletico de Madrid. That game is still goalless, and we are approaching the 1 hour mark in that one. So for those of you that could be interested, that's the scoreline. Trying to find out who is scored from the penalty spot. Is it Hakani Chanalolu who is scored for Inter Milan? Yeah, it's Hakani Chanalolu from the penalty spot that I scored to give Inter Milan that second goal of the game. So anyways, back to St. James's Park. Beto in the 34th minute scored to make it 2-1 to give Everton the 2-1 lead going into halftime, while Jacob Murphy in the 82nd minute scored to make it 2-2, and then Thornberry scored in the just a minute later to make it 3-2, with Keenan Drisbury Hall providing the assist as Newcastle were being condemned yet again. Now, for those of you that care to remember, we spoke about this Newcastle side and the kind of turbulency that they've had throughout the season in as far as the Premier League is concerned, how it's played out for them while they've had better exploits on the European continent in the UEFA Champions League, where they managed to qualify for the round of 16 and will be playing against Barcelona, a team that they played at the league phase and lost to at home by 2-1. Is a team they will be facing in a two-legged fixture at the round of 16. So, but a beautiful game there, but they were on another losing end. I think now they've lost 4 of their last 5 Premier League games, because I think they had, if not, is it not 5? Because, geez, oh my, they've had quite the poor form. But by the way, what on God's green earth was Nick Pope doing? Like, considering that goal, that goal that he concedes from against Beto. I mean, what was that? What was that about? Because for Jordan Pickford, for example, the equalizer he concedes from Jacob Ramsey, the ball takes a deflection, and so it rises above him. But then, in this particular case, I think it was Dwight McNeil who takes the aim at Nick Pope. He sort of buries the shot, he fumbles the ball, and Beto lashes onto it and buries it to give Everton that 3-2 lead. So it was very, very uncharacteristic of a goalkeeper of the stature of Nick Pope. Ordinarily, you would fancy him to be keeping that one out, But, like I said, football is a game of fine margins. And then, so we know Newcastle have had a very difficult season domestically. We know they got knocked out of the EFL Cup, yet they were the reigning champions at the hands of Manchester City. We know they have to play Man City in the FA Cup. Still, we know that they face now an uphill battle against Barcelona in the UEFA Champions League. But domestically, in as far as the Premier League is concerned, they have not been at it throughout the entire season, really. They've struggled for results, really. Things have not happened the way they would have hoped. Things have not, even Ed Howe was self-critical of himself, saying he's not done his job well, that he criticizes himself for falling short of his job. He knows that there are things he should be doing better, and he knows that. And he said nobody puts more pressure on him than he himself, given how very demanding he is of himself to continuously improve his team, to make sure that they are on the right track. But it's been that kind of season, really. It's been that kind of season for them, and. But meanwhile, speaking of the game itself, away from the inefficiencies of Ed Howe, Beto missed a keeper to beat. He went for power as opposed to being smart, and he blazed the attempt on the crossbar. And I'm thinking to myself, can you just not have the composure to put that in the back of the net? Can you not just have the composure to put the ball into the back of the net? I think it was Jolinton that provided the assist for Jacob Murphy's goal. But as soon as the game was restarted, Everton scored on the other side through Tony Barry. And I mean, if you see, that's what I keep saying, guys. A team is most vulnerable when they have just scored a goal or when they have just conceded a goal. That's when teams are most vulnerable, because if you have just scored, you're still in celebratory mode. Now, Newcastle, hardly had they even digested their own equalizer than Everton punished them. I'm sure a host of Newcastle fans were still basking in the joy of that goal. Were still celebrating it in a way. Were still turning to each other to discuss the goal and what it means for the game from there onwards. And barely had they finished those conversations, those celebrations, than they conceded on the other side, But like I said, that save by Jordan Pickford from Sandro Tonali's attempt from outside the area is what will make the rounds this weekend. Arguably, one of the saves of the season, if not the very best of the season. Because, first of all, it's a thunderbolt of a strike from Sandro Tonali. He's running onto that ball, and then he gets a good grip on it in terms of striking that ball. He hits it with a lot of power. But Jordan Pickford somehow puts his palm to it and parries it, as he parries it over the bar, it hits the crossbar before going outside. So, very, very entertaining fixture there between the Toffees and the Magpies, and it finished in 3-2 in favor of Everton. So very, very decent result there for, for David Moyes' side. But like I was saying about Newcastle have just had a poor run of form going into match day 29 of the Premier League, in which they will be at home against Manchester United, a team they lost to by 0-0 in the first leg. I think that goal scored by Patrick Dogu when Ruben Amorim was still in charge. You remember when he reverted to a back four. So that's the team they will be up against. So when you look at Everton, they've lost 4 of their last 5 fixtures, losing to Liverpool, losing to Brentford, only winning away to Tottenham. Excuse me. Losing to Tottenham Hotspur and subsequently today to Everton. That also implies that they've lost 5 of their last 6 Premier League games. I seem to forget who they were up against on match day 23. On match day 23 of the Premier League. Let me find out quickly who they were up against on match day 23 of the Premier League, because I seem to remember they lost that game. Yes, they were up against Aston Villa, so they lost by 2-0. Timari says, hi, you remember me? Obviously, Timari, I do remember you. Thank you so much for joining us there. Kindly like the broadcast, but thank you so much for always sparing the time to be part of our conversations. So anyways, moving away from the Everton Newcastle shenanigans, allow us move on to the Liverpool game as they put the hammer to the hammers of West Ham, thrashing them by 5-2 in a 7-goal thriller. Oyemiroth Godfrey says, Godfred, I want to know the injury of Arsenal. He's asking about the injuries of Arsenal. Guys, let's first finish up with the Saturday results, and then we'll get to the Arsenal-Chelsea game in just a bit. But Arsenal's injury list is not very long, because I can tell you briefly that Kai Havertz is back in training. So stay tuned for more of the injury news from the Arsenal camp. Anyways, so at Anfield, Liverpool cruised to a 5-2 victory. Now, the results may not tell the full story of this game, because it was a game of missed opportunities or chances on the part of West Ham, particularly in that first half. You did almost feel like as though Liverpool had in a way that the game was against the run of play. Twikiriza Boaz says hi. Hi, Tukiriza says Arsenal will score 3-1. Tukiriza is giving us his predictions for the Arsenal-Chelsea game. Thank you so much for your prediction there, but we'll get to it in a bit. Now, it almost felt like Liverpool were 3-0 ahead against the run of play. In other words, the scoreline at the time, by the time Liverpool got 3-0 up, it did not reflect the performance of both teams on the pitch, because at that time you thought that West Ham should have had at least a goal in that game by that time already, before going 3-0 down. But it was Hugo Ekitike, who opened the scoring. I think it was it Ryan Gravenberch or McAllister that nicked in the ball. He scores, to give Liverpool the lead. And I mean, West Ham, to be fair to Liverpool, West Ham have been very, very poor defensively. They are one of the sides that have shipped in the highest number of goals so far this season. So it was Ryan Gravenberch who provided the assist for Hugo Ekitike in the 50th minute to find the back of the net. Then set piece, corner kick is brought in, and Virgil van Dijk, it was a corner kick by Dominic Szoboszlai. Virgil van Dijk rises the tallest, puts a brush of his head to it, and it hits the back of the net. And the West Ham goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen, yes, the summer signing from Leicester City, could not even get his touch to it. And then in the 43rd minute, again, it's a corner kick. I think it's flicked onto the back post where Hugo Ekitike is waiting, and then he plays the ball in a bit of a cutback to Alexis McAllister, who puts it into the roof, and it's 3-0 in the 43rd minute of the game. Now, like I said, at that point, I did not think or feel that the result or the scoreline at the time reflected the performance for West Ham on the pitch. You thought they should have deserved a goal or two by that time. But, football is not always about what you deserve or do not deserve. It's always about you getting the ball over the line to cross into the back of the net. That's what matters the most at the end of the day. So West Ham were not taking care of that business. But very early into the second half, in the 49th minute, Thomas Soucek capitalized on a cross from Malik Diouf to make it 3-1. But while they look to cut Liverpool's deficit in the 70th minute, Cody Gakpo, once again, Hugo Ekitike providing his second assist of the evening. I think there were two players who, the Gravenberch was not given the other assist, but I thought he deserved almost his second assist. And therefore, as you will see for Jeremy Frimpong's goal, although it was given as an own goal by Axel Disasi very late on in the game, but Ekitike, turn provider, once again when he made the assist for Cody Gakpo to score in the 70th minute to make it 4-1. So West Ham then had the whole mountain to climb, and then Castellanos in the 75th minute scored to make it 4-2 with Gerard Bowen providing the assist. But prior to Castellanos scoring, Somerville had missed a golden opportunity to pull one back for West Ham. And then in the 82nd minute, Jeremy Frimpong. But guys, you need to go back and watch those highlights if you didn't watch this Liverpool game. The pass that Ryan Gravenberch places in between the defense splitting pass that he plays for Jeremy Frimpong before he takes his aim on goal and his ball is deflected into the back of the net by Axel Disasi. That pass was quite sublime, really. It was another key moment for me in the game. Timari says, my phone broke. Sorry about your phone. It does happen. Smartphones are quite very delicate. Most of them, one fall is enough to send it beyond repairs. So that's very unfortunate if you had your phone break. So anyways, the game finished at 5-2, which is a very denting result to West Ham's hopes of surviving relegation. But very encouraging a result for Liverpool in their pursuit for a top 4 finish, because that is their third consecutive win in the row for Liverpool, because they beat up against Sunderland by a goal to nil. They beat up against Nottingham Forest very unconvincingly last weekend by a goal to nil, and now they managed to beat up against West Ham by 5 goals to 2. So it was a very, very impressive result there for Liverpool that they will take into their next fixture, for which they will be playing away to Wolverhampton Wanderers, who we know have become some form of giant killers in the later stages of the season there. Godfred says, please may I know 5 Premier League fixtures for the Arsenal. The upcoming fixtures for the Arsenal, well, they have Chelsea, that's first for tomorrow. Then they will play Brighton and Hove Albion next. After playing Chelsea, they'll play Everton, they'll play Bournemouth, and then they'll play Man City. That will be Arsenal's next 5 run of fixtures. But before we get to the Arsenal conversation and the Chelsea game that is coming up tomorrow, allow me first wrap up the Manchester City game. Man City, yes, went away to Elland Road and won by a goal to nil. Again, it's a kind of result that does not reflect their performance. For all the effort that Leeds put in, I thought, or at least I felt, that Leeds deserved something out of that game. But Leeds will only blame themselves for not getting anything out of that game, because they were not clinical with their chances. They had only 2 shots on target compared to Man City's 5. They had 7 shots off target compared to Man City's 5. That tells you how misfiring they were on the night. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, one of the culprits in that one, really, as Antoine Semenyo scored in the third minute of stoppage time of the first half to give, Manchester City, it was the second minute there when Antoine Semenyo scored to make it 1-0, with Ryan Ashnory providing the assist there. It's a game that finished with Daniel Fakir, the Leeds coach, being shown a red card. I do not know particularly for what behavior, but very, very discouraging result for Leeds, who have been really, really good because when they lost to Man City by 3 goals to 2 back in November, ever since then, that is come through, the second half, sorry, through December, January, and then almost 3 months. In a space of 3 months, Leeds had only lost 2 Premier League games. They lost to Arsenal by 4 goals to 0 and lost to Newcastle by 4 goals to 3. They had a whole chunk of draws, but also they had some really, really decent results, including beating up against Chelsea by 3 goals to 1. So they had 2 draws against Liverpool. They had another draw against Chelsea. They had a draw against Sunderland and some other decent results really that put them on course in their battle against relegation there. But it's the kind of game that you expected Man City to dominate in possession to the tune, which they did to the tune of 67% compared to Leeds' 33%. They were never going to be dominant on the ball, but what I thought they needed to do was to be very clinical with their few chances or the chances that fell their way. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, so therefore they got to drop all 3 points as Manchester City won their game to move within 2 points behind Arsenal, who are leading the Premier League table now. Both teams have played the same number of games at this stage of the competition. All have played 28 games. Remember, why Arsenal at the end of every cycle will always look like they played a game more is because of that rescheduled game against Wolverhampton Wanderers that they played last week but one midweek. So that is Man City for you. Man City's next game will be at home against Nottingham Forest. Must be not an easy game, but a very winnable fixture. If you saw how Nottingham Forest behaved, if you saw how Nottingham Forest behaved on Thursday against Fenerbahce, how they behaved against Liverpool, and who knows what they could bring tomorrow in as far as tomorrow's fixture is concerned, because on Super Sunday, on Super Sunday, Nottingham Forest will be away to Brighton and Hove Albion at 5 p.m. Fulham will take on Tottenham Hotspur in that London derby at 5 p.m. while Manchester United will be at home against Crystal Palace, while Arsenal come at 7:30 p.m. That's for the Super Sunday fixtures. So Man City, in terms of their upcoming fixtures, like I said, they have Nottingham Forest, they have West Ham. I mean, those are very, very winnable games for Man City. Then they have a game against Chelsea, and that will be at the Stamford Bridge. They will have a game at home against Arsenal, and after that, they will play Burnley. So really, if you're Man City, what's stopping you from winning at least 3 out of those 4 games? I'm just thinking out loud that Nottingham Forest is a must-win, West Ham is a must-win, so is Burnley. Let's assume those are guaranteed wins. It's not that simple in the Premier League, but let's take that assumption. Then, yes, Chelsea forced you into a 1-1 draw in the first leg, but this is a very beatable Chelsea side, given their recent trends for the 2 draws against Burnley and against Leeds, even though they are yet to lose a single Premier League game under Liam Rossignol. How long that will continue, only time will tell. And then you have a home game against Arsenal. He's your direct Premier League title rival. Beat him at home and put the odds more in your favor. It's that simple. The work is cut out for Man City. Will that be the case? Only time will tell. Only time will tell when we get to April the 18th. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see in that regard. Then quickly, also, let's leave Man City at that. But like I've told you, that result means that they've moved within 2 points behind Arsenal at 59 points, while Arsenal have 61 points. It also means that Man City have won their last 4 consecutive games in as far as the Premier League is concerned, with a win against Leeds, with a win against Newcastle, with a win against Fulham and Liverpool. So those are the last 4 games that they've won. Okay, let me now revert back to your comments. At what time is the Arsenal game? I told you 7:30 p.m. Somebody asked me about Arsenal's injury list. Now, Arsenal without Mikel Merino, still out through injury. Like I said, they do not have too many injuries. Mikel Merino is a player that is out through injury. because Martin Odegaard is back in training. Bukayo Saka is fine, despite fears that he had sustained something in the North London derby. Ricardo Carafiori is well back in training. No issue with him. Then who else? Kai Havertz is also back in training with the boys. I did see pictures of him training with Victor Gyökeres. So, and then Max Dorman, who had also been out through injury, had I think he featured on Friday night in the under-21 game. So those are Arsenal's injury concerns, to be fair. Like I said, they do not have too many of those, unless there is anyone that I've skipped, which I can't recall quite easily. Yeah, maybe Ben White. Ben White missed the North London derby. He did not make it to the matchday squad. When Mikel Arteta was speaking about him, he said they'll have to wait and see with the late fitness tests. But he was expected to train today with the team. Sorry, by today I mean Saturday. So I said today because majority of our foreign followers, for them, it's still Saturday, especially those around Europe and in the USA. Or for those within Africa, it's already, for many of them, it's already, Sunday. So that's the context I wanted to put to that. Then there was another comment, still about, I think, regarding Arsenal. Okay, I've given you Arsenal's next five fixtures. That's all good. Somebody asked me a question. Oh, yes. It was Alituha who said, will you talk about Chelsea? Yes, now, Chelsea have some injury concerns to deal with going into the Arsenal game or going away to Arsenal. Marco Correa still out with a hamstring injury. According to Liam Rasinha, William Esteban won't be making it for the trip to the Emirates Stadium. Jamie Gittens remains out. So is Levi Colwill. Dario Isugo still out through injury. Felipe Jurgensen was a doubt through a knock, but Romeo Lavia is back in training. He's been training well. In fact, Liam Rasinha said they had a practice match in midweek and he featured and he looked good. So be sure that one will be available. So Chelsea do go to Stamford Bridge. Go to the Emirates Stadium with not many injuries to worry about. Other than those few, but also they do have a suspension for Wesley Fofana because of the red card that he sustained or that he received during their game against Burnley. So please bear that in mind, Chelsea fans, that you'll be without Wesley Fofana. And then, of course, Mukalo Modric, this one is still away for personal reasons. Now, what is deemed as personal reasons is because he was charged by the FA for being in breach of anti-doping substances, which he claims that he had no knowledge, he had ingested. He's been out since December 2024. It's quite very unfair, in my opinion, for him that matter has not been investigated to its logical conclusion. It's quite very, very unfortunate. Mpaji Yusuf. Hi, Mpaji Yusuf. Why are you joining us from my brother? Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel while you're here with us. Also, do let us know what team you are supporting, Mr. Mpaji Yusuf there. So that's the news regarding Chelsea in terms of their injuries, in terms of who could miss. In terms of how they could set up tomorrow, I do expect Robert Sanchez in goal. I do expect Richie James at right back. I do expect to see Trevor Chalobah alongside Tosin Aderabio, Jorel Hato, and Malo Gusto. In other words, Chelsea to play in a back five, with Malo Gusto being played at left back because Marco Correa won't be available. Then a compact midfield of Moises Caicedo, Andre Santos, and Enzo Fernandez. And this is if it were up to me. And then I would go with Joao Pedro and Pedro Neto to play as my strikers. Why am I bringing in Pedro Neto? Because of his pace. That pace. You need to getting those wines in behind Arsenal. The midfield has to be as compact. Joao Pedro, you need him to be standing between the two center backs in Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba. He has the pace for it. Paji says, how is Man United will be a winner if Allah's will? Paji used to say they are suggesting that Man United will win their game against Crystal Palace. Like I said earlier on, I do expect Man United to win that game, but let's talk about that in a bit. So there's somebody who predicted that the Arsenal-Chelsea game will end 3-1. That was Twikirize Boaz. Mr. Twikirize, thank you so much once again for your prediction. So for me, if I were Liam Morasinya, that's how I would go to the Emirates Stadium. I understand that a lot of people do not want to hear about the back five, but that bit of caution, you need to exercise that bit of caution going into a game to the Emirates Stadium, because leaving yourself too open could let you obliterate it. Or otherwise, if they are not to play with that, then you sort of play a 4-4-2. Atletico de Madrid thought they had scored, but that goal has been cancelled. Alex Baina thought he had netted for Atletico de Madrid. You know, that game is equally ongoing there in the Spanish La Liga. Oyomi Roth says, which team will play in the UEFA Champions League round of 16? Let me respond to that in a bit, Godfred. So, anyways, so on the side of Arsenal, I've given you their injury concerns, but in terms of setup, personally, I would want Ben White to start that game because of what he offers Arsenal going forward in the overlap. Yes, I understand Yoran Timber is a better defender, but also Yoran Timber has played so many minutes. He's played so many games. He needs a rest, in my opinion. Anyway, knowing how stubborn Mikel Arteta is going to be, expect this kind of lineup. David Ryan, goal. William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. Yoran Timber and Piero Hincapié. That's his back four. Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Ebeleche Eze. Leandro Trossard, Victor Gyökeres, Bukayo Saka. That's the starting 11 I expect from Mikel Arteta. If there's any change, any slight deviation to that, it could be that Ebeleche Eze starts on the bench and he plays Martin Odegaard to start. I do not know. But then also with Kai Havertz's return, if he does make it to the matchday squad, he may not start, given that he's returning from a minor injury issue. But he could feature. He could come off the bench because he's one of those players that are really, really reddish, scoring against his former side in Chelsea. So my prediction for that game was a 2-1 victory for the Arsenal. That's the prediction I gave. For those of you that want an extended version of the preview of that game, please go over to the channel, click that subscribe button, but go under the live section. Yes, go under the live section and look for our Saturday morning broadcast, whose headline read as such. It says Premier League preview, Arsenal versus Chelsea. And then the question, we also put a question, can Liam Rosinia get one over Arteta? So Saturday morning broadcast, we digested that game to its full extent. We debated the pros and cons of starting with Ebeleche Eze versus Martin Odegaard and everything with that regard. We talked about Mikel Arteta being quizzed on whether it is a possibility that he can play Ebeleche Eze to the left and then accommodates Martin Odegaard in the same team and things like that. So you can also go over to the channel and enjoy that. Godfred, you asked about the UEFA Champions League draws. Now, I'm going to give you the round of 16 Champions League draws, but while I may give you the listing, you can also still go over to the channel under the video section and watch our video where we go to talk about those draws. It's up there on the channels. It says UEFA Champions League draws. Man City have Real Madrid again. PSG are up against Chelsea. And then Arsenal have Olympiacos. So, off of my head, here are the round of 16 UEFA Champions League draws. PSG will play Chelsea. And these are in the order of who starts from home. It's a home and away basis. So it's PSG versus Chelsea. Galatasaray versus Liverpool, Real Madrid versus Man City, Atlanta versus Bayern Munich. That's on one arm. On the other arm, you have Newcastle versus Barcelona. You have Atletico de Madrid versus Tottenham Hotspurs. You have Bordeaux Glimt versus Sporting Lisbon. And then you have Bayer Leverkusen versus Arsenal. So those are the round of 16 draws of the UEFA Champions League. Is Man United in the Champions League? Twikirize Boaz is the one asking. No, Man United will be watching the Champions League from home. They will be cheering on whichever team they see fit, but they are not taking part in the UEFA Champions League this season. They have to wait until next season. That is if they finish within the top 4 or at least the top 5 in as far as the Premier League is concerned. But given the recent trend of results from Michael Carrick, I have a strong feeling that they will make it in the top 4 there. How is okay? Ampaji was the one who said Man United will be a winner if Allah wills it. Now, in my humble opinion, I think Man United will win their game tomorrow. And the reason for that for me is because they are just fresher. They are well rested. We know what to expect from Man United for a starting 11 and things like that. Crystal Palace had a game in midweek, and that game was on Thursday. They played up against Monster. They beat them by 2-0 in the playoffs of the UEFA Conference League. That game took its toll in terms of energy on the team. I saw Oliver Glasner trying to say, guys, do not draw comparisons between us and Chelsea. That whereas he acknowledges they have a bigger budget and better squad than Monster, it's not as easy. They do not have the luxury of rotating their players just as much as Chelsea did the entirety of last season, where they had about 43 players in their squad. That's according to Oliver Glasner. So Man United will come up against a very tired Crystal Palace side who played a game on Thursday. Tariq Mitchell was in there, Taichi Kamada was in there, Ivan Guessand, Jürgen Strand-Larsen, Brennan Johnson came off the bench. Maxence Lekwa was part of that. He did score one of the goals, whereas Ivan Guessand, on loan from Aston Villa, scored the other. Of course, Dean Henderson in goal there. I've mentioned Tariq Mitchell. Who else? Ismail Sarr missed a couple of good chances in that game. He was in that game. So for those of you that may have been able to catch it, or for those of you that missed it on Thursday night. So then we're talking about a Man United side. Like I said, I struggle to remember the last time Man United lost a game, because ever since the turn of the year, no Premier League team has gathered more points than Man United. So there's that fact. Then also under Michael Carrick, they are yet to lose a game. I think they've played 6, they've won 5 and drawn 1. The draw coming against West Ham. That was the previous weekend before beating Everton by 0-0 on Monday. Godfred says Arsenal will win by 2-0. Thank you so much, Godfred, for your prediction. Meanwhile, Atletico de Madrid have broken the deadlock. Finally, they have a goal against Santi Cazorla's Rio Oviedo side, who are fighting relegation, but it looks like they will not make it out. It looks like they won't make it out. That goal by Julian Alvarez could be enough to get all 3 points for this Atletico de Madrid side. That goal coming in the 94th minute of the game. Beautiful, beautiful goal from Julian Alvarez. I do not think this one can be chopped. I think that one will stand. Anyways, so that's that. So in terms of Man United, like I said, on Monday they beat Everton by 0-0. That goal scored by Benjamin Sesko. Matthias Cunha looked good in that game. Brian Mbeumo provided the assist. Kobe Maino, Casemiro. It was a very balanced game in all honesty. I did not think Man United deserved to walk away with all 3 points. I thought Everton had done just enough to at least earn a point from that game, but you know, it's not, like I said, it's not always about what you deserve or what you should have got. It's about if you get the ball in the back of the net, eventually you're going to carry the day. Benjamin Sesko, that's the game where he showed us that he really, really has the pace. Given the way he cruised past James Tarkowski, the Everton captain, there to go and tap that ball into the back of the net. So beautiful, beautiful game of football there. So Man United are at home against Crystal Palace. In the first leg, they beat up against Crystal Palace by 2-1. Goes by Joshua Zirkzee and Mason Mount, who scored to cancel out. Jean-Philippe Matita's penalty earlier on in that game, but also get the goal that won them the game. Beautiful performance on that time when Ruben Amorim was still in charge. Now it's Michael Carrick, who is literally auditioning for the Man United job. Will he get it? Only time will tell. But so far, you'd say that the odds are increasingly tilting to his side, regardless of what Man United's recruitment department may have initially thought. Allow me to digress a bit. Back to the Arsenal-Chelsea game. The first leg ended in a 1-1 draw. Chelsea finished with a madness following the sending off of Moises Caicedo for a red card that he sustained after his dangerous tackle on Mikel Merino. But Chelsea were really, really dominant in that game, especially in midfield. Richie James, man of the match kind of performance, was really good in that game. Trevor Chalobah scored for Chelsea that game. Mikel Merino, I think, scored. Was it Mikel Merino that scored the equalizer for the Arsenal? So like I said, for those of you that want a more expansive views about that game from us on Football Tribe UG, just go over to the live section. You'll find that Saturday morning broadcast there for you to digest through. But really, Chelsea were quite dominant in that game. I'm watching the images of Santi Cazorla doing the stadium tour, clapping towards the Rio Oviedo fans. It's where he started his footballing career. He's what now? 40. Santi Cazorla is the captain of the team. Doesn't start always every game, but what a player, Santi Cazorla. Speaking of Santi Cazorla, greetings to you, Kato Morris. I know you're such a huge fan of Santi Cazorla. Kato Morris is a Manchester United fan. Godfred says, thank you for the commentary. Thank you for the comments. May God bless you. Thank you so much, Godfred. May God bless you as well. Thank you so much for your kindness. Thank you so much for dedicating the time to be with us tonight. Your time is not taken for granted. I hope you already subscribed to the channel to continue supporting what we do here. And on that very note, I want to say thank you so much to all our subscribers, all our new subscribers, and the old ones, the mid ones, the regular suspects or the usual suspects, the semi-regular suspects, and those that pop up every once in a while. We do appreciate you really, really a lot in every time you come up and dedicate your time to be with us. For those of you that have sent in comments, I do appreciate you a great deal. Thank you so much for always sparing the time and for putting in a comment. Do not hesitate to ask your questions, to put in your comments. I'm always eager and ready to respond to the comments for as long as they remain within the confines of the game, for as long as they are respectful, for as long as they are not derogatory to anybody. We will always labor or try and answer them as often or as much as we can. And if you have a prediction, do not hesitate to give your prediction. It helps spice up our debate to prevent it from being a one-way street. The way somebody, a news anchor comes before a TV set and they read you the news. Anyways, so we know that Arsenal have already beaten up against Chelsea twice this season in the EFL Cup. That's the English Football League Cup, or which many of you know as the Carabao Cup, which many of you previously know as the Carling Cup or the Capital One Cup. Yes, it's still the same competition. It just changes names depending on the sponsors. There's the time when it was called Carling Cup, it was sponsored by Carling. Now it's the Carabao Cup, it's sponsored by a brand called Carabao. So like that, the way you have the Emirates FA Cup being sponsored by Emirates. So Arsenal beat Chelsea home and away, 1-0 at in the reverse fixture at the Emirates Stadium, while they had won the first leg by 3-2 at Stamford Bridge. So maybe 2 facts that you must keep in mind going into that game is that Chelsea have only beaten Arsenal once in the last 10 Premier League games. And that was on August the 22nd, 2021. For those of you that remember, Thomas Tuchel was still in charge of Chelsea. Chelsea went to the Emirates and beat Arsenal by 2-0. Ever since then, Arsenal have beaten Chelsea 6 times in the last 10 meetings, and there's been 3 draws. When you extend it further to the last 20 meetings between the two sides, you'll find 4 victories for Chelsea in those 20 meetings. And I think you will find about how many? About 5 draws, thereabouts. The victories for Chelsea, you'll find a 3-2 victory for Chelsea. That was around May. No, a 2-1 victory for Chelsea around May 2019. No, May 2019, Chelsea beat Arsenal, and this is across all competitions. Chelsea beat Arsenal by 4-1. For those of you that remember, the UEFA Europa League final in Azerbaijan, Baku. Then in December 2019, Chelsea beat up against Arsenal either by 3-2 or 2-1. And then you add on the August 2021 fixture. Then there's another game in which Chelsea beat up against Arsenal. So in other words, Arsenal have been the more dominant side, and more so when Arsenal at home, they've always come out on top, at least in as far as recent times are concerned. It's the kind of fixture that Jose Mourinho liked to dominate during his time at Chelsea, but that sort of phenomena has been brushed away. Anyways, allow me to say thank you to Sebi Dedan. Yes. Thank you so much. John Abiero, thank you so much. Asha Speed, Alituha, Mohammed, Dean, I think, Timari, Oyomi Roth, Godfred, Twikirize, Boaz, thank you so much. Paji Yusuf, and every single one of you that has been part of tonight's podcast. Allow me to wrap it up here. It's been 1 hour of us doing this. I know for my Ugandan community, it's already 1 a.m. A lot of you guys want to go and rest. I wish you a blessed Sunday, a wonderful rest of the week. Enjoy your respective games. May all your teams win, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. We have no broadcast, but we'll be back Sunday night. So just keep your notifications turned on, and you'll be notified every time we go live. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.